He stood tall, had a good build, and kept to himself. This man was the type that could leave an impression with just a few words. Clint Walker captivated audiences around the world for a long time as the dashing cowboy who did the right thing in classic westerns. However, what was his personality like when we weren't filming? Nobody had ever quite gotten a handle on that. Everyone was curious in his private life, but his only daughter was particularly so. She is now prepared to speak out after years of keeping quiet. You will have a new perspective on her father after hearing her words. Clint Walker's life and career extended beyond acting. You would miss him if you lost him. When he competed on screen with other actors, he seemed to tower over them all. He has a powerful voice, strong shoulders, and stands at 6 feet, 6 inches tall. It seemed as if he had stepped out of a classic western. He went ahead and did it. Clint was actually Norman Eugene Walker, and he was born in Hartford, Illinois. He came from a family of Czech ancestry and has a half-sister and a twin sister, Lucy. He joined the ranks of other young men who left school to find employment. Multiple occupations were under his wing. Before enlisting in the U.S. Merchant Marine at the tender age of 17, he had experience in a variety of fields, such as manufacturing and riverboating. Even while the Korean War was going on, he came back. He was a Las Vegas hotel doorman who was always thinking about his future before stardom discovered him. After that, he ended up in Hollywood. Henry Wilson, a talent agent, signed him and briefly had him go by the name Jet Norman because to his good looks and stature. However, he became famous as Clint Walker in 1955 when he landed the main part in the TV Western Cheyenne. An enormous success was Cheyenne. After the Civil War, Clint played the role of Cheyenne Bodie, a nomadic cowboy hero. The play catapulted him to stardom, and his portrayal of a kind yet powerful cowboy became legendary. For 7 seasons, he captivated audiences as the beloved figure. He would occasionally even break in a song on the broadcast. Warner Brothers released an album of him singing traditional songs after his warm baritone voice stunned many people. At the same time, Clint co-starred with Warner Brothers performers like Roger Moore in other westerns, including Fort Dobbs, 1958, Yellowstone Kelly, 1959, and Gold of the Seven Saints, 1961. Claimed that one of the reasons he liked making westerns was that it kept him active and outdoors, which was his preferred activity. Clint didn't strictly stick to westerns. He dabbled in a wide variety of genres, from comedies to tragedies to war pictures like 1967's The Dirty Dozen, in which Clint portrayed a kind behemoth of a prisoner. Clint was a mainstay of the 1970s television movie industry. Include Yuma, Killdozer, and appearances in iconic films like Snow Beast and The Night of the Grizzly. With the help of novelist Kirby Jonas, Clint penned a western tale called Yaqui Gold as he grew older. Clint Walker was rightfully acknowledged for his significant contributions to Western entertainment. In addition to his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, his 2004 induction into the Hall of Great Western Performers, his 1997 Golden Boot Award, and his 2017 award on the Texas Trail of Fame in Dallas, he has garnered numerous more accolades during his career. Both as a cowboy and a genuine symbol of the golden era of television, he lives on in people's memories. On Clint's days as a bouncer, Clint Walker oversaw a string of low-paying, physically demanding jobs before becoming famous as the silent, powerful cowboy from Cheyenne. A nightclub bouncer was one of his first occupations. It is the role of the bouncer to maintain order and safety in the establishment by removing disruptive customers from the premises. Well, calling Clint by his real first name, Eugene, would be quite inappropriate if you were at the nightclub where he worked. It turns out that Clint Walker's real name is Eugene Walker, and we get the impression that Eugene detested being called Clint. Eugene Walker was hardly the stereotypical rugged hero of the West. It was probably more at home in a classroom than on the range, in Eugene's opinion. Referring to him as Eugene at work was practically surefire way to get fired, according to many who knew him. There was no animosity. The very mention of the name made him gag. After he and Clint took over, that was it. His on-screen and off-screen personas were the same. Truthfully, doesn't Clint sound stronger? He faces career limitations due to his stature. Clint Walker's 6 feet 6 inches stature, together with his 48-inch chest and 32-inch waist, greatly contributed to his on-screen persona. Even if it was a detriment to his casting, his large stature got him into the world of granite-jawed cowboy fame. It was challenging to cast Walker and find performers to co-star with him, according to Walker, simply because of his size. Because he was so towering over everyone and may unintentionally steal the show, he was best suited for a supporting role. Due to his lack of personality and the fact that Hollywood was still figuring out how to handle actors of unusual height in the 50s and 60s, Walker had few roles in which to shine. The producers were faced with the difficult choice of basing the entire plot on Walker's girth or imposing casting restrictions to compensate for him. I either face a heavy who confronts me head-on, or they throw in 3 shorter actors to even the odds, Walker would joke. To sum up, it evolved into his own take on the casting curse. When Clint Walker became Cheyenne in 1955, that situation should have been predetermined. Both his acting chops and the sheer size of his structure made Clint Walker an ideal choice for the part. But after a while, it became difficult for him to discover any leads other than a huge one in the West. Although he experimented with military dramas such as The Dirty Dozen and made-for-TV thrillers in the 1970s, he was never able to fully shed the influence of his physical appearance. Even the critics didn't get it. His authenticity was lessened due to the mass of his on-screen physique, according to a movie blog, which described his earlier TV seasons as wooden and extremely stiff. This could be because he was learning as he went along. Each filmmaker grew reliant on his charisma and physical presence, making it difficult to build a camera or plot around him. His entrance into the scene was so powerful that you could feel him before he spoke a word, ruling out any possibility of a weak or strong plot or development. The audience loved it. Despite appearances, Clint was a real cowboy hero. However, casting agencies were looking for more subtlety, and Clint was just too dramatic. He had less chances to expand his acting career as a result of the roles provided to him that were inextricably associated with his physical appearance. His latter works, including Yaki Gold, give the impression that he was still looking for ways to express himself outside of the traditional Hollywood mold. Size, in a nutshell, was both Clint Walker's strength and his weakness. It defined his duties, impacted his career, and confined him to a stereotype from which he never fully recovered. Family issues and dissolution of marriage. In his latter years, Clint Walker was involved in more than just westerns and fan mail. These issues stemmed from his private life and had an effect on his relationships and how others saw him, which pointed to a downward spiral. On screen, Clint Walker seemed like the epitome of a dapper cowboy. Divorce was the most significant difficulty. Allegations of alcoholism, all of which impacted his professional trajectory thereafter. Their marriage lasted from 1948 until 1968, when Clint and Verna Garver filed for a divorce. For almost 20 years, Clint and Verna were wed. Their daughter's name was Valerie. The emotional toll of their separation is mentioned in multiple tales. Although the specific grounds for the divorce are still under wraps, onlookers speculate that the couple discreetly separated as the demands of both their personal and professional lives mounted. While Clint's star was rising in 1968, he divorced. He remarried again afterwards. Recordings and coverage of the divorce by Hollywood press hinted at the troubled private life Walker was hiding behind his tough exterior. Worryingly, lots of biographies and news articles indicated that Clint fought alcoholism and depression quietly, but they also said that he had trouble with these things. Anecdotal evidence suggests he battled drinking and depression, particularly in the face of the stresses and increased public scrutiny that came with celebrity. The man on display did not experience these issues all at once, but according to others in the know, he would occasionally struggle with his inner monologue, and those issues would occasionally seep into his personal life and have an impact on his reputation. Although official histories tend to be vague about these occurrences, both fans and biographers have noted that Walker had fewer leading roles in his later career. His career took a nosedive once Cheyenne aired. Walker maintained a stable career with TV movies and a few film appearances, but he was never able to regain the star power he had in his early years. Some sources draw similar connections, suggesting that Walker's later decisions might be impacted by emotional pressure and the lasting repercussions of bereavement and divorce. The situation was further compounded by the fact that both casual fan conversation and tabloid tales implied that there were continuous struggles. Based on these things, it seems that Clint had some tough times emotionally and drank a lot. These accounts were not as thoroughly documented, but they were consistent with the story told in the retrospectives. The stresses of fame and personal tragedy are making it difficult for a guy to lead a regular life. In the 1970s and beyond, individuals continue to deal with the effects of divorce and other personal tragedies. He had surely been marked by the death of his second wife in 1994 and the effort of juggling 3 marriages. Although he remarried in 1997 and discovered a new purpose after penning his Western novel Yaki Gold, we are still clearly observing emotional consequences. The tall, stoic Cheyenne cowboy hero Clint Walker will live on in legend, but the story of his twilight years is far more relatable. One who subtly changed the course of his life and profession while he battled grief, emotional difficulties, and a divorce. Online reviews written by fans. Even though Clint Walker was a beloved Western star in his day, not everyone who saw his films liked them. On the internet, Most people talk about Westerns these days, most notably on Reddit and vintage cinema message boards, where Clint Walker is frequently met with a range of opinions, with some commenters pointing out that his approach may be somewhat abrasive. Commenters on one Western site were unanimous in their approval of Walker's on-screen persona, while their reactions to his speech were more varied, if not amused. Their voices were similarly deep. Walker and Fess Parker, he says. Nonetheless, the twang is audible in the rise and fall of the final vowels. Even though he is relatively quiet and well-modulated, some reviewers praised his modulation. Whether it was believable or overdone, the twang persisted, and opinions diverged. A lot of people on the message boards thought Walker's physicality was more of his selling point. It was problematic for production once Cheyenne exited the air because of Walker's terrifying physique and big voice, as one user put it. As a supporting player, he was completely inappropriate due to his enormous stature. Fewer chances to showcase variety or perform complex, tragic roles were presented by the default fame persona. Critics continued to claim on message boards even after he had passed away that he was not a fantastic actor in the traditional sense. That comment made a distinction. One commenter continued to say, his physique was praised by some, but his acting was criticized for failing to match the hype. Fans gushed over the old-school celeb's towering stature and commanding screen presence in another Reddit discussion. He resembled Superman. They did, however, agree that, in comparison to his Hollywood counterparts, his acting was merely adequate. He triumphed over nuance. A pattern develops as a result of this. Cheyenne possessed a cowboy roughness that fans adored. However, close your eyes. The performance seems wooden, according to several modern critics. Coarse language is used, and every component was expected. According to one reviewer, they could hear the same B-Western-style deliveries over and over again. The acting in Trow seemed really stiff. That subdued sincerity may have served the genre well in the past, but the forum posters of today come across as insincere, with only a handful of emotions managing to make an appearance. Other shooter session remarks, however, leaned toward the positive. His voice had a silky quality and was non-nasal. Perceived warmth beneath a sleek cowboy, according to enthusiasts, and sounds like a bass baritone. A Western twang that doesn't always sit well with modern audiences, and performances some saw as stiff or without variation are some of the obvious shortcomings that retrospectives still bring to light, even though many fans still enjoy Clint Walker's traditional star power and larger-than-life presence. With an acting career characterized by roles that, because of his towering height, did not allow him much leeway for flexibility. While admirers may nod in agreement at his myth status, they will not shy away from pointing out the flaws in his speech or the inconsistencies in his typecasting, particularly when viewed through the objective lenses of modern criticism. The Guy Who Beat Death. The terrible tragedy that Clint Walker suffered in 1971 may sound like a plot point from a Hollywood film, but it really occurred and altered public perception of him irrevocably. A horrific accident befell him as he was skiing on Mammoth Mountain. During his fall, a ski pole pierced his chest and entered his heart. An accidental tragedy might have claimed lives. Indeed, medical professionals declared him deceased upon his arrival at the hospital. However, a doctor detected a sliver of life at the last possible second. His pulse was barely beating as the other medical staff hurried him to the operating room for emergency surgery. He miraculously survived. The event becomes even more remarkable when one considers the speed with which Clint recovered. Within 2 months, he was back on the job. The average individual would not even be able to recover from a heart attack so fast, to say nothing of acting or directing physical situations. But Clint was a brute. Years of experience playing rugged Western heroes gave him a massive frame and a height of 6 feet, 6 inches. Still, getting back on your feet wasn't the only goal. A spirit, a will to live, and a determination were at the heart of this. After the accident, Clint spoke about how it changed his outlook in interviews. The little things began to bother him less and less. I learned to ignore the things that used to bother me, like negative press and office politics, and instead concentrated on the things that were truly important to me, my loved ones, my health, and anything else that helped me relax. After his near-death experience, everything in his life became crystal clear. It's impossible to pretend to have. The rest of his life was a demonstration of his clarity and commitment. Years later, when discussing the disaster, he maintained an air of modesty instead of drama. Playing the hero or evoking sympathy were out of the question. The man's gratitude and humility toward his second chance at life were palpable. Maybe that resonated with folks even more when it happened. He went beyond his role as the movie cowboy. He was the one who had to face death because other people had already died because they had made the same decisions. Risked everything for the sake of living. This second opportunity would have been completely foreign to him before. Nothing except Valerie Walker. Though few may recognize her, Valerie Walker is an unsung hero who quietly made history. She was not someone who sought fame or fortune. Instead, she lived a life of daring and adventure, her path marked by self-control and bravery. Valerie began her aviation career at a time when women pilots were still a rarity. She was born in 1950. Nothing could stop her from pursuing her dream of flying. After getting her pilot's license, she worked as a flight instructor and gained expertise in a variety of settings, including flying DC-3 Bush planes over Africa and U.S. law enforcement helicopters and aerial patrols. It was her breakthrough. Came in 1976, when she joined Western Airlines as one of the first female pilots for commercial flights. Even in and of itself, this was a huge deal, especially considering how male-dominated the aviation sector was back then. She went on to serve as a distinguished captain for Delta Airlines, where she piloted major aircraft such as the 727, 737, 758, and 767 before retiring. She loved more than just flying, though. Martial arts training was something Valerie had done for a long time as well. Jiu-jitsu, Wing Chun, Aikido, and Kempo karate were all part of her training. When she finally stopped flying, she went on to obtain a black belt. She shifted her focus to instructing others in self-defense and martial arts. She trained airline employees and citizens in self-defense using her knowledge of traditional martial arts and her own experiences. Valerie has always maintained an air of humility for us, despite her incredible achievements. She shuns social media and never discusses her private life with anyone. I think she prefers to avoid being on social media. It is her preference to allow her art to do the talking. The story of Valerie Walker teaches us that not every achievement requires praise. Courage, grit, and perseverance can lead you to new heights, no pun intended, no matter where life takes you. And her meandering journey through the martial arts world and the skies is proof of that. The demise of Clint Walker. In May of 1971, Clint Walker experienced an almost unbelievable scary encounter. I can almost hear the plot of a movie. What began as an enjoyable day of skiing at California's Mammoth Mountain soon became a tragic near-death experience. Clint went off the mountain while snowboarding down its twisting, uneven slopes. It was a harsh fall for him. As I was tumbling, a terrible event occurred. Tragically, he was pierced in the chest by his own ski pole. Upon arrival at the hospital, his prognosis appeared dismal. Because of his grave condition, the physicians pronounced him dead, which, for the majority of people, would be the end of the story. But miraculously, one of the physicians detected a glimmer of life. Clint underwent emergency surgery as soon as the medical professionals took action, while successfully mending Clint's broken heart. Coming through something that horrific is hard to imagine, but Clint managed it. Both his survival and his unexpectedly rapid recovery add a further layer of remarkableness to Clint's narrative. After just 2 months off due to the injury, he was back at work. After such a near-death experience, most people would still be in the process of recovering, and some might even retire. Having saying that, Clint wasn't the typical person. He went on to say in subsequent interviews that the event gave him a new outlook on life and altered him forever. There was a lot more for which Clint could be thankful after he faced death. Living his life to the fullest was prompted by this. Clint passed away in Grass Valley, California on May 21, 2018, after a long and difficult battle. Devastating congestive heart failure took his life less than 10 days before he would have been 91. After Clint passed away, his cherished family consisted of a granddaughter, a half-sister, a daughter, and his third wife. Even if Clint's survival tale from 1971 isn't very noteworthy, his twin sister Lucille passed away in the year 2000. Not only is it noteworthy for its rarity, but it also embodies the character of the man he was. Tough, tenacious, and full of life. His actual character. In May 2018, at the age of 90, Clint Walker passed away. His daughter Valerie Walker offered a unique and moving account of her emotions during that time. Valerie told the AP that she was a fighter. Even in death, he persisted. With those remarks, Valerie conveyed a profound bond between a father and daughter, going beyond a simple tribute to her father. The message it sent was one of gentle power, affection, and comprehension. Valerie remained largely unsung for the majority of her existence. She was quite private and would only seldom agree to interviews. However, after Clint's passing, she emerged from hiding and gave fans a glimpse, through her words alone, of the kind of man he really was outside of the show. Along with respect for her father's resolve, Valerie's remark revealed an emotional comprehension of the ordeal he went through in his last hours. She conveyed everything with her description of him as a warrior. To sum up, his struggles with physical health was only part of it. In essence, it was summarizing Clint's life. In the face of hardship, he never shied away. Clint never shied away from facing challenges head-on, whether it was a potentially fatal skiing injury in the 1970s or navigating the fame that came with it. There was a lot of witness to the hardness in these remarks for Valerie, but they ultimately came from love. Because it was so simple and unadorned, it had an even greater impact. She didn't wax poetic. She simply spoke her feelings, and her candor and authenticity shined through. A sincere expression. Val did more than just identify the renowned tough guy at that moment. She also revealed, via someone who knew him best, who Clint Walker the man was. The life of Clint Walker was characterized by calm power, discipline, and purpose, rather than only by the cowboy hats, broad shoulders, and expressionless stare that we witnessed on television. He never sought celebrity in the conventional sense. He never felt compelled to. Even just being in Hollywood at the same time made an impression. In his off-screen life, Clint maintained a life of discipline and serenity. He never lost his bearings, whether he was exercising out, taking in some fresh air, or trying to get some quiet time away from the cameras. Not even the most famous celebrities of his day could pull that off. The ability to maintain silence in the face of foundational loudness is remarkable in a society where such noise is ubiquitous. Even if everyone stopped caring about Clint, he was the quintessential American hero. His apparent contentment in forging his own way, unconcerned with following trends or conforming to the expectations of others, was perhaps the most impressive thing about him. He led a life unencumbered by the need for approval from others, playing parts that were authentic to who he was. Fans may have wondered why Clint never gave interviews, made public appearances, or shared stories about his family life. But maybe his greatest achievement was safeguarding the things that mattered to him. His impact extends far beyond the realm of cinema. It persists in the understated reverence that many still have for him. In the end, Cheyenne wasn't everything that Clint Walker was. He would carry himself with the poise, confidence, and calm strength befitting a man of his stature. Living a life like his makes one's actions speak more than words ever could. Because of that, there will be a lasting legacy. Please hit the like button if you found this video's biography of the Cowboy's creator, Clint Walker, interesting and informative. True character doesn't require the limelight, and his narrative teaches us that strength frequently comes from remaining silent. We have further obscure Hollywood tales, long-lost myths, and in-depth analyses of the lives of the actors and actresses you believed you knew. Make sure you subscribe and enable notifications if that's what you're into. Have a great time browsing, and we'll catch you in the next episode.